Guys, I had a lot of fun last night actually on my Locals Q&A. I'm on Locals. I do a lot of censored material there. Some of the stuff which sadly I can't cover on the podcast because it'll get me banned immediately because I'm playing in the wrong sandboxes, YouTube, for example, and Facebook. So check it out at Locals. I noticed there was a big surge in the number of people who were watching. I think it was a lot of fun, a lot of back and forth. This is a way to interact, by the way, directly with me. And also Debbie makes a lot of I wouldn't even just say cameo appearances. She like weighs in. At times she appears to take over. I feel like step aside. But no, you'll really enjoy it, I think. And it's just kind of like here. Anyway, that's dinesh.locals.com. So do check that out. Now, I want to talk about Tale of Three Trials. One, of course, is the Rittenhouse trial, and I'll actually address that in the next segment. And that's one that we're doing very well. And in fact, it looks like the prosecution is starting to back off. They might actually lower the charges against Rittenhouse. I think a clear signal that they're losing. And the second trial, you hear very little about. It's barely in the media. I had to sort of search to find out about it. This is the Charlottesville trial. You might remember the Charlottesville rally. It was falsely labeled Unite the Right. First of all, there was no unite anything. And second of all, it wasn't even the right. The Charlottesville rally was organized by leftists, notably Jason Kessler, a leftist who was an Obama guy, an Occupy Wall Street guy, and the other, Richard Spencer. Richard Spencer is a leftist, a progressive by his own admission, a guy who voted for Biden, voted for Harris, voted the straight Democratic ticket in 2020. And the media is trying to hide all this. In fact, there are whole articles on the Charlottesville trial that they mention, that Spencer is, alt-right. He's the leader of the alt-right movement. And they repeat these slogans. This is in the New York Times, Washington Post, BuzzFeed. Just distortion on top of distortion. Here, by the way, is a clip of Richard Spencer from my movie Death of a Nation, in which he talks candidly about his own political views. Listen.
What it means to be on the right, what it means to be a conservative, is actually deeply collectivist. It is not individualistic
Pause
at
for a
all.
moment. So as I would say, as a conservative, I'm conserving the philosophy and the principles of the American founding. You're not.
I've been critical of the American founding and throughout my writings, my career.
Sure. What was wrong with the American founding?
This notion that we will create a state to protect human rights or individual rights. I mean, no state in the history of the world, including the United States, was ever created like that.
So all men are created equal, true or false?
False, obviously.
What about the idea
No
that...
one actually believes that. I mean, seriously, no one believes that.
The idea that, let's say, we have a right to life, true or false?
A right? I don't think we have rights to really anything. I don't think we should ever pledge allegiance or worship legal documents.
And would you agree that at the end of the day, it is the individual who serves the state and not the other way around?
No individual has a right outside of a collective community. You have rights, not eternally or given by God or by nature.
Who gives them to us?
You have them because you're a part of this community. Ultimately, the state gives those rights to you.
So there you have it. And this isn't just Spencer coming out for Biden. This is him laying the underlying framework of his ideology. It couldn't be more limpid, more clear. Now, Spencer and Jason Kessler and this guy named Heimbach, Matthew Heimbach, who's a kind of a neo-Nazi. Let's remember again, the Nazis, the neo-Nazis are National Socialists. This Heimbach guy has deep roots in the socialist movement. Jason Kessler, I mentioned, is also a leftist. So this is and these guys are being sued by 9 plaintiffs under a kind of old law. In fact, it's an old civil war law that was passed by the Republicans. It was called the Ku Klux Klan Act, and it basically talks about the fact that you can't incite violence, racially motivated violence against black people and other minorities. And so there's a federal civil trial that's been going on. It started in late October. It's still going on in Charlottesville. the defendants are making a joke out of it. And then one of the weird things about neo-Nazism today is it's laced with a certain type of irony. So this neo-Nazi Matthew Heimbach puts Richard Spencer on the stand and basically says, I have difficulty seeing you as a neo-Nazi because you're too bourgeois, you're too bougie. And Richard Spencer jokes, he goes, well, are you worried about my, my polo shirts, my boat shoes? So these are neo-Nazis who like get up on the stand and promote their podcasts. I mean, in one case, they bring up Deborah Lipstadt, who's a noted scholar of Jewish history, and she's there to testify for the plaintiffs. And they say things like, have you ever heard an anti-Semitic joke that made you laugh? And of course, Lipstadt is like, so there's an element of like perverse theater going on. But what stands out to me is the fact that the media is not covering it, because I think you can see as you zoom into these characters, just as you can see in the Rittenhouse trial, that these are not really men of the right, not at all. Richard Spencer today despises Trump. He liked Trump on one issue, the immigration issue. Even there, he disagreed with Trump, as he says in the movie. So this is a left-wing group. And the only reason that the left hates them is because they're a left-wing group that is, in a sense, socialist, but is not woke. In other words, they haven't jumped on the racial bandwagon. They still defend, if you will, white interests, white nationalism. So essentially, the Democratic Party has pivoted from white nationalism to black nationalism. And these guys haven't apparently got the memo. And that's why the left hates them. And so you've got this Charlottesville trial, but its real meaning, once again, the left is putting out a false narrative. They're still doing it. I mean, here's I just look at line after line from these articles. They basically say that, quote, and this is coming straight out of the BuzzFeed News. Out of the New York Times. The case will spotlight how far-right movements thrive online. No, the case will spotlight how far leftists actually have a lot in common with even the people who are suing them. And that is the untold story of the Charlottesville case.